Hello, I'm David Turner, and I want to speak to you a few minutes from my backyard here about the upcoming Writers and Wine Literary event to be held at the Fern Ridge Library on October 9th to raise funds for the Library Foundation. This year I'm the featured author at this event, and I want you to join me in this short discussion here about my books on local history and encourage you to come to the event itself. Over the past 10 years, after retiring from a 30-year career as an art museum director at 4 different museums, I've developed a new series of projects about documenting local histories. This has combined my interest in research and writing with a long-held passion for the use of photography to tell stories. And that's led to the production of 4 books on local histories in this area. Having grown up in Houston, Texas, but living in 4 different western cities, including Eugene twice, I learned how to immerse myself in a new residential community and discover about the place where I live. So I want to talk a little bit about how I became part of my Eugene community during my museum work here and outside of that. When my family and I returned to Eugene in 2003, we found some property about 9 miles west of Junction City and began settling in. One of my first big tasks was to relearn all I could about Eugene. Living here back in the 70s offered a view of a city in transition, especially visible by the building of the new Valley River Center and the closing of the downtown main streets to create an urban mall. The Saturday market was establishing itself as an alternative shopping space on the old Butterfly parking lot, and the city saw many public protests about saving the French Peak wilderness. But in the first part of the new millennium, when I returned here, Eugene was looking quite different. Where had it been? Where was it going? That's what I was interested in. So to learn more about the old Eugene, I studied historic photographs wherever I could find them, particularly in local public collections. To learn more about the new Eugene, I joined a group of photographers working on the Grid project, where we would go out almost monthly to photograph a different square mile project to help watch and record the evolution of the city. This led me to create my first local history book, Eugene, published in 2012 by Arcadia Publishers, and included over 200 historic photographs of Eugene in the area. A second publishing project came up as my interest in the Long Tom River grew. This started out with a restoration on our section of Owens Creek, where we live, which eventually flows into the Long Tom River and had previously been dammed up so there could be decorative ponds on the land. That's when I discovered this wonderful Long Tom Watershed Council, who helped us take out the dam, plant native plants on the shores of the creek, and then conduct a 5-year fish study about the cutthroat trout living in the creek. I later became more involved with the council and served on its board for 7 years and was able to meet many of the landowners living in the area. I found so many people totally committed to living along the Long Tom River that I started creating a book about the history of the river as it runs through this spot. It was published in 2017, and I took a bit of a different format approach in that I invited other locals to share their perspectives on the area, including a historian, an ecologist, a fish biologist, and several other photographers. I liked that collective effort of pulling a book together. My most recent book is about Fish Lake, a historic site just up above the headwaters of the McKenzie River. This book started off as a project for the Friends of Fish Lake, who have been restoring that site, whose history had led many lives and involved many different people. For instance, during the past 500 years or more, Fish Lake had been, among other things, a camping spot for tribal people searching for natural resources in the area. Also, it was an active way station for the mid-19th century travelers who were crossing the Cascade Mountains, and it became a National Forest Service guard station that focused on fire suppression and trail building for the wildernesses nearby. Finally, in 2005, it became a nationally recognized historic site that now welcomes visitors for summertime kayaking, year-round hiking and picnicking, and overnight winter stays for snowshoers. So a book was needed to document this history, and finally one exists. I see this Fish Lake book as part of a series in the long tradition in using words and images to document the past. In some ways, I feel I have been pulled into that documentary process where one looks for a better understanding of the big picture and the overall view by deeply looking into the detail, being as specific as possible. This is something I want to talk about further at the Library and Writers Wine event coming up. So, as our people and lands change over time, documentary books are something that can help record portraits of a time and place that become place markers in the historic record. So please join me on Sunday, October the 9th at the 2022 Writers and Wine event at the Fern Ridge Library to look further at how books and libraries are becoming the community's focal point on reading, learning, and building a community. Thanks.